Alright, in this video we're going to go over AEDs. So this would be Chapter 6 in your book, and that stands for Automated External Defibrillator. And that's the key word right there, automated. And we'll talk about the difference between that and a manual defibrillator in just a little bit. But before I move on into this chapter, last chapter was about CPR. I just want to make something clear. Cardiopulmonary resuscitation. I didn't really define it last chapter, or last video, so I wanted to make sure that I explained what it was, and this should make sense because it's combining, you're compressing the heart. That's the cardio portion of it, so we're manually pumping the heart. We're also giving breathing rescue breaths, so that's the pulmonary part. We're giving rescue breaths to manually pump the heart to get the oxygen out to the tissue. So CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So let's go back to AEDs for just a second. This is an automated, or you may even hear it called automatic external defibrillator. These are a little different than the ones that doctors have in the hospital. Those are manual ones. And the main difference here between a manual defibrillator is if a doctor suspects that there's a little bit of electrical activity in a heart, can go ahead and shock it, whereas an automated one will not let you. So, and we'll go over the steps in a little bit, but when it's analyzing for a heart rhythm, the automated one, if it doesn't detect some sort of heart rhythm, it won't let you manually shock the person. You can't override it like you can a manual one. You can go ahead and decide to give a shock. And that's important because a manual one, these are the ones you see in movies and stuff. If there's just a small amount of electrical activity, there's a chance that you could bring the person back around. It's a small chance, but there's still a chance. But it may be so small, the electrical activity may be so small that an automated one can't pick it up. And so it's assuming that the heart is dead and it won't let you shock, so it just tells you to do CPR. Either way, I just wanted to explain the differences between the two. So what we're looking for is some sort of arrhythmia, and probably the most common arrhythmia is VFib, which is ventricular fibrillation. So essentially what's happening here is the heart is quivering. It's not pumping effectively, it's just kind of quivering. So it can't pump effectively to get heart or get blood out to the tissue. So if you were looking at some sort of ECG or EKG or whatever, it would be an unpredictable rhythm. It would have no rhyme or rhythm, no rhythm to it. It would be very unpredictable. The next one it would be erratic. That would probably be a good way to explain it. Is Tach, which is ventricular tachycardia. Tachycardia. Sorry, I had to think about how to spell it. And here we're going too fast. Heart is just pumping really crazy, so fast in fact that it can't get enough blood back to it to resupply it. And so since not enough blood comes back to it, there's not enough going down the coronary arteries. Let me explain something I haven't explained before while we're talking about this. Not only does the heart bring blood back to it, pump it out to the lungs, and return it to pump out to the body through the aorta, Let me undo those real quick so you can see this. But, let me change color. The heart is crowned with coronary arteries. So let's say this is the outside of it. So you have coronary arteries that kind of crown the heart and feed it with blood. So if a heart is pumping too fast and not enough blood's getting back to it, let me undo those real quick so you can see. So we got, so not enough blood flow is returning to it. Not enough blood flow is going to return back to it from the lungs. So here we've got deoxygenated blood going to the right atrium, right ventricle, and pumped out to the lungs. So let's draw a pair of lungs down here. Not the best pair here. And I explained this in another video, but this will bring the point home, I think. Then we pump blood back here to the right atrium, down to the right ventricle. Well, a portion of this oxygenated blood coming back from the lungs also feeds the heart. So if not enough is being pumped out to the lungs and back to the heart, then the heart doesn't get enough itself, and eventually it starves. So that's how tachycardia works. Not enough blood gets back to it. And the reason that's a problem is because it may eventually lead to VFib. So typically VTach will lead to VFib, which will lead to cardiac arrest, or is cardiac arrest. It's just an arrhythmia. Heart's not getting enough blood supply back to it, and if not enough blood supply gets back to it, then the heart tissue will die and it can't repair itself. So if you were looking at some sort of graph of a heart rhythm, EKG, what have you, you'd see these really high, fast peaks for VTach. I know that's not the best drawing, but that gives you the point here. VFib, it's quivering, so it's a really crazy, erratic rhythm. Here, yes, you have these really high peaks indicating a really fast beat and not enough blood getting back to it. So VTach is the second most common, but it eventually leads to VFib anyway. So what we're trying to do is use an AED to shock the heart. So we're trying to shock it back into a normal rhythm. So that's how an AED works. We're trying to take one of these erratic rhythms and reset the heart, essentially hitting the reset button and resetting it. So let's talk about how an AED works. So if you have an AED and it's present, the first thing to do is turn that booger on. And designers have tried to keep these streamlined, but there are some variations. So the first thing you do is turn it on. Some have like a button to push. So some of them you have a button, some you flip it open. There's a little bit of variation there. But as soon as you turn it on, it's going to prompt you and tell you what to do next. So the next thing you want to do is wipe down, so dry the body. So dry the person off. So you're going to have to bare the chest, of course, to do that. Dry them off. Shave their chest if they have a hairy chest. So if they have a hairy chest, you need to shave it. So most of them come with razors, because if you place the pads on top of them and you try to give a shock, it's just going to burn hair. It's probably not going to get a good connection. And so you do all these prep, make sure they're not in water and there's no medical patches, and you don't place the pads right on an implanted device. So there's a couple of things that you got to consider. If they have a necklace, take it off. Nipple rings, take them out. Anything that's going to impede that electrical signal. So you turn it on. You prep the body by drying it, shaving it if necessary. Then you place the pads in the upper right and lower left. And most of them have pictures on them. Lower left side, I should say. Because what we're trying to do, let's say here's a body. Let's draw this body out here. They're laying there and we've wiped it down. So it's going to be the upper right side. So we're placing a pad here, and then we're placing another one down here on the left. If it's a child and the pads touch, so you can place, so this is going to be front, this is going to be their back side. or anterior, posterior, however you want to view it. You can put one front, one back if it's an infant or child and the pads touch when you bring them across. Well, the idea here is we want to get this shock to go across the heart. So the heart's going to be right around in here, and we're trying to get the shock to go across the heart. That's the reason your pad placement is important, and the reason you wouldn't want to put the pad on the upper left, lower right is because if they have an AED, or a built-in pacemaker, it may have a built-in AED on it. It may impede your ability to shock the heart, so we're trying to get it to shock across the heart. That's the reason on an infant and a child, it'll still shock across the heart going from one pad to the other. So you can do it front and back. But on an adult, upper right, lower left is what you're looking for. So that's where you're going to place the pads. The next thing it's going to do is say analyzing. So after it analyzes the signal, it's going to either tell you to begin CPR if it doesn't pick up a heart signal, or to shock. It'll say shock advised. So let's go back through these steps. First, we turn it on. We prep the body. So we prep the victim. Place the pads. So we got pad placement there. It's going to say analyzing. We're going to say analyzing, stand clear. Make sure anybody with a cell phone is more than 6 feet away. This is common today. So the EMFs from the cell phone will interfere with its ability to analyze. Make sure they're not in a moving vehicle because it will also interfere. And then we're going to shock the body. So when it says shock advised, you say shocking, stand clear. It may take 2, 3, 4, 5 shocks. You just keep going until the AED tells you to begin CPR. So it's never going to completely stop. It's either going to prompt you for CPR or tell you to shock again, or to recheck for signs of life. So again, one more time, turn it on, prep the body, pad placement, let it analyze, make sure everybody stands clear, and then shock the person if advised, or begin CPR depending on what it says. And you may have to go through these. I've got a great video on this, so if you watch the Bondi video, it's probably one of the best videos. It also shows agonal breathing and how that can be confusing. You might think somebody's breathing when in fact they're not. So that's an AED. That is how it's used. Let's talk a little bit about the electrical system in the heart just briefly. I mean, your book doesn't really talk about this, but I just want to show you why shock works. You have the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Let me draw these out real quick. I know this is not the best drawing, but it'll work. Alright, so we have the SA node up here. And the SA node is going to send that electrical signal. SA node essentially is going to control these atria, its ability to contract. And the atrioventricular node, so this is SA node up here. I'm not going to write them all out. And then the AV node right here controls the ventricles by going down through these Purkinje fibers, if I'm pronouncing that right, and causes the ventricles to contract. That is a oversimplification, but essentially that's how the electrical pathways work through the body. So you have this stands for the sinoatrial node, the SA node, and then this one here stands for the just in case you want to look this up, ventricular node. It's the AV node. And then these little fibers down here that innervate the ventricles are the Purkinje fibers. And there's a lot of other little steps in there, but anyway, gross simplification of that. So that is how an AED works. AED also has event memory. And what that does is kind of records what type of arrhythmia the person is in, what their heart is doing and when, because a lot of these are time-sensitive treatments. So EMS may ask to take your AED with them. You let them have it, because when they take it to the hospital, they can download what exactly was going on and when, and based on that, they can give certain treatments. And AED is a lot more successful than CPR alone, so it has priority over CPR. So I hope this was useful. I left out some stuff, but at least this gives you a good overview of how an AED works and why it's important. So I'll see you in the next video.